Got ourselves a batch of shinies, Commander.
Welcome to episode 31 of Coordinated Fire, a Star Wars Shatterpoint podcast where we couldn't stop Trevor from quoting Han Solo, even if we tried. How's it going, everybody?
Good. For the record, we haven't tried yet, so I feel like that's
We haven't
a little
tried
preemptive
today, to be clear.
So we have a guest on today, if you haven't guessed.
His name is Trevor. What a weird way to start an inside joke that no one even understands.
Hi.
Trevor, welcome. Happy to have you here. Unfortunately, Sean was sick this week, but we have invited someone with significantly more hair to take his place.
You just got to rub it in. Man, he's going to listen to this. And
I'm part Wookiee on my mother's side.
I believe that. But Trevor, super excited to have you here. Before we dive into the episode too far, let's jump in with a few introductions. So Trevor, you are one of our relatively local players, at least local to Ontario. Do you want to kind of just jump in with your Shatterpoint journey? Introduce yourself a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. So, hi, I'm Trevor. So for Shatterpoint, I got in when they released the Han Solo box for the game. It was kind of like, both with this MCP, I usually wait till there's a character that I really enjoy before I get into a game, before having a whole bunch of product that I don't have an interest in using, because these games tend to be a big investment. So I got with that game, and then, or that box, I got the Luke Skywalker box, mostly Rebel stuff, and started to kind of build up the community in my area, Kitchener, Cambridge, Waterloo, Ontario. I would run a couple of tournaments, but always ready for time and space. But we met up with you guys at an hour and a half truck to come play in your event.
I can definitely say that we appreciate you guys being willing to make the trek over. Obviously, we've been happy a few times to pay that favor back and come see you guys down there as well. But 100%, you've done a ton of work building up the community on your local side, which is great. We've talked a lot over the time of doing this just about community building. And I think when you look at the pockets of Shatterpoint in Ontario at this point, we've got, our Peterborough, Durham area group. We've got, Ottawa's building up, but then the Tri-Cities area is what it's actually called.
Technically is what they call it.
Sure.
Yeah.
But is kind of the other significant group. Battle for Breath that we talk about a lot here is a local event to your area as well, and one that we all travel towards. But it is really nice that kind of all of these collective communities across Ontario come together, and there's a lot of interconnected travel between them all. So it was very nice to have you around, Trevor, and obviously appreciate the work you do with the whole community on your side.
Thank you.
So you did mention MCP there. Was MCP your first miniatures game, or?
No. My first miniatures game was actually HeroClix.
Okay.
Brackets.
Nice.
So I bought some of like the OG HeroClix starter set, but I had no one to play with, and I was like really young at the time. So my first official miniatures game where I played kind of competitively was actually Wizards of the Coast Star Wars Minis.
Okay.
I'm not sure if you remember that one.
Yeah.
So quick question for my benefit. HeroClix,
Yeah.
that's the one with like the hexagon tiles?
No, that's HeroScape.
Okay. I mix them up all the time.
HeroClix, it's called Clicks because they have a little dial on the bottom for their like health and abilities, but they have a
Okay.
ton of different
Gotcha.
IPs. It's mostly Marvel, DC.
They were doing
Gotcha.
indie comics like Hellboy. Was the big one. Now they've branched out to Ninja Turtles, Star Trek.
I remember back in the day there was some Yu-Gi-Oh stuff, then they did some Halo stuff at one point. But it's an interesting game where you buy your minis in blind booster packs.
Okay, yeah, I used to see those at they had like a big pile of them at Dueling Grounds all the time back in the
Yes.
day.
So
Sounds cool.
So HeroClix, and then the Wizards of the Coast Star Wars miniatures game, which I have never played. I only really know about because our local store has a very large display of those minis for sale that have been there for the entirety of
The
time.
lifetime of the store, yeah.
So the WotC Star Wars minis game was like HeroClix, but it was a blind box, and you got 7 to 8 minis, and then they would give you just a card that had hit points, attack, defense, and how much damage one attack would do, plus certain abilities. And it was all a D20 format. Oh yeah, it was a fun game. But then WotC canceled it. Yeah.
Yeah. And then here we are with a fun new Star Wars game that, Trevor, I want to talk about your journey a little bit. So coming from MCP, I remember I met you at a Shatterpoint tournament where you came out for kind of the first event out our way. And we've been kind of chatting consistently ever since. And I know there was a bit of a growing journey there in comparisons to MCP to Shatterpoint, where, you know, there were some things you weren't super a fan of at the beginning that I know have grown on you as you've gotten more comfortable with the game. And I know just from talking to a couple of players, because we had some new players out at an event this past weekend, spoiler alert to where we're going with the chat, but that kind of went with some of those same initial observations. And do you want to just talk about that journey a little bit?
Yeah. So I'm sure those listening already know that Shatterpoint is not MCP, but Star Wars Skin. It is a completely different game, and there's things I like about it. And like, I'll be honest, at one point I was so mad at the game. Like
I remember.
I was like, I hate this game. I don't get it. Like, it doesn't make sense. But I'm very stubborn, so I took a challenge to figure it out. I'm trying to think of like what it is. Like with MCP, you can choose who you activate with. You have more agency over the board. You have more reaction, but you also have to plan ahead. Where coming to this, I was already used to it because I also played Legion, or I also play Legion.
Right.
So the randomized orders was something I was familiar with. But Legion,
and then I think Shatterpoint cranks that up to 11, right?
Yeah, because Legion, you're like, okay, I'm gonna play this command card. I can choose 2 units of my leader, and then they're all activated. You have the autonomy to choose when you choose those guys. But if you go to the bag, there's the random side of it, and then you're like, okay, what can I do with this? So yeah, it cranks that up. So it's harder to. You can have a game plan going in, but you can't always anticipate that you're gonna get the deck draw that you need when you need it, which is, well, when we get talking about games this past weekend, it was a 50-50 for one game. I needed one card. I got the one I didn't need, and that cost me the game. Yeah. So there's that with Shatterpoint.
There is definitely there's a bit of a learning curve. And I think there are some choices that are different for some other games out there, including AMG's own games, which is interesting to see from my side of dabbling with MCP, but never going too far in. Because I really like the theme, I like the game. It's actually like one of my favorite at-home miniatures games to throw down, but never really clicked for me for at an event or tournament kind of space. For me, it felt like they learned a lot as developers coming from MCP to Shatterpoint, right? And part of that for me is the variance I feel is toned down. And it's interesting that, you know, you see order card and like priority objectives that were big hot points and where variance is turned up, but dice variance is way down from the highs and lows that I feel you can see in MCP. And those are my frustrating moments for me personally from an MCP perspective.
Yeah, like with MCP, at no point in Shatterpoint when I'm playing a game do I feel out of the game, even if I'm getting destroyed dice-wise. There is variance, but with MCP, I happened to me at a tournament recently where I got attacked, but my character got attacked. They rolled 5 or 6 attack dice. They got 3 crits. Those converted to 8 successes. I blocked nothing and just got 1 shot off the board. And that kind of more feels bad when like that game is so reliant on dice, where Shatterpoint is so much more reliant on your positioning over attacking sometimes. Like sometimes attacking is not the right choice. And that's another part with people coming into this game. They're very much in the aggro mindset where they come from 40k or MCP or Legion even.
The objective is to kill the opponent across from you.
Yeah, and now it's like, okay, well, I got to score points. I have to get bodies on stuff. I have to maneuver around things, and like, I've played games against people like you, Kyle, where you did like 1 wound an entire game and you just body points and got the win, right? Like, it's
and those things can definitely be a bit of a learning curve. Yeah. So fast forward a little bit, and I think those were some of the initial things, but Again, fast forward to current state. What changed your mind? Where did you come around?
Stubbornness.
We
No,
bullied you into coming back every time. Got it. Okay.
yeah, no,
It's
it's
because
not,
he likes us.
well, you guys are all right. No, it's I'm the person that if I take something as a challenge or something I can't figure out, I have to look at it differently, but I need to understand it. I'll lose my shit and I'll figure it out and I'll have a moment, feel real and end game. But then it's like, okay, what do I do here? And I started looking at it more as a puzzle as opposed to a combat style game
The
because when I
puzzle's, I
came
think,
in,
a big thing, right?
yeah, when I
that
came in,
is,
I was aggro as well. Like you gotta kill things because MCP was my main game, and like I said, it's not that.
I think I had that conversation a couple of times. Every turn is it's solving that puzzle of where can I get the pieces in the right spot? How many of them can I adjust? Can I move? Can I interact with? And I think that puzzle is the exciting point, especially as you get deeper in. Now, you've kind of you said your first box was the Han box. And Trevor, I can't think of another example of someone that is just stuck with what they like to play more than you have, because that Han box has come with you to every single event that I have ever seen you at, and you really stuck through it. And to your point, coming from a time where maybe you struggled with that a bit and it wasn't quite clicking, to your growth over the last year as a player in, I think it was last year, Battle for Wrestle, or almost a year, where you only planned for coming from day one because you had no intention that you were going to make it to day two.
TBO.
Last year.
Yeah.
And then you made Top Cut and you're like, well, shit, I can't stay. I didn't plan for this.
Yeah, it was my anniversary weekend. Big Star Wars fan, married May the 4th, right? Like hard tough for the wife.
She's great. But I think ever since then, that's been a more consistent thing. And that is sticking with the same primary units. Like it's typically Han, Luke, Charming Leia are kind of the three, I think, persistent ones.
I'll bounce between Charming and Freedom Fighter. But yeah, usually it's a variation of those three.
You've got a Luke, Leia, and Han there kind of each time, and it's been where I think the rest of us bounce around quite a lot. It's been really cool to see that kind of payoff. So with that, let's jump into, we did have an event on Sunday. I think it was super fun to get kind of back into the fray. We didn't do an event for December, and November's was kind of mid-month, so we were basically 2 months. Obviously, over the holidays, our Thursdays lightened up quite a bit locally for us too. So it was really nice to get back to a full day of Shatterpoint. Titus, I know you and I were messaging each other like right before the event of, I don't know what I'm playing. Do you know what you're playing? We talked about it on the cast last week and we still didn't have an answer. And I didn't write my list.
I thought I had an answer. I actually said on air that I thought I had an answer. I ended up playing none of that.
Yep. Yeah, I finally, I think, put my list together through it, like packed everything up like 12:30 in the morning the night before, by the time I finally landed on what I was playing. But we got there. So Titus, what did you end up playing?
Okay, so I looked at the stuff that I had prepped and I went, nah, I don't think so. There was really no reason to it. I was practicing it and went, yeah, I'm not feeling it. So I'd been messing around with trying to fit Aura Sing into a list. And CAD is really the only way to do that. Like it really is, unless you're doing something weird with Dathomirians, I think. And even that, I never find it works. CAD is a good place to put her. And that led me to go, okay, well, what about the CAD bounty hunters thing? I know I was looking at Krennic back when he was spoiled, and then Cassian just kind of became the go-to for the bounty hunters. But Krennic still feels like he has potential, and he likes when secondaries kill things. Aura is incredibly lethal, so maybe this is kind of the variation on the bounty hunters where Krennic actually works, maybe not better, but like quite well. So I was originally playing with that with IG-88 under Krennic. I realized there's a huge pileup of abilities that all trigger on the same thing. So I switched it up. The final 2 squads for that half ended up being Cad, Aura Sang, Weequay Pirates, and then Krennic with Boba Fett and Han and Chewie. And I had a rough time with Han and Chewie, as I always do, because my Han and Chewie is cursed, and everybody gave me grief for it all weekend because I was running around saying Han and Chewie are garbage.
Dear listener, they are not in fact garbage.
Yeah,
Thank
they're.
you.
I have enough self-awareness to know they are good. It's mine that aren't good. And then the other list, again, I was looking at Ewoks or Stormtroopers. And I went, no, you know what? This is a really aggro list. I want something defensive. I want something with lots of healing because I like lots of healing, but I don't want to play something I've played before, or at least something I haven't played in a while. So my thoughts went to Luminara because lots of healing that's kind of the place to start if you're going in Clone Wars era. Had Luminara, and then I like Hondo, so I threw Hondo in there, and it became an all scoundrels list, and it just kind of fell in from there. Luminara had Wrecker and Echo and Tech because they're scoundrels, but they're also a Republic, so she can get the bonus attack on them, but they can still get the Hondo triggers, yada, yada, yada. And then Hondo had Lando and R2 as a support, and I'm trying to remember what my secondary was.
Ezra. It was Ezra.
What was that?
It was Ezra.
Right, Ezra. Yep. Just because Ezra's amazing with him. But yeah, long story short, I went into the event, had no idea what I was playing, just wasn't ready, hadn't played any of these lists, and just threw them down on the table.
Yeah, so I feel like that CAD Krennic list probably with maybe needs some tweaks, but there's something cool there based on the concept.
I would go back to IG-88 in a heartbeat. Because I did practice that one, and despite the fact that there's a bunch of conflicting triggers, it's still because with IG-88, then you have the bounty hunters. You can give bonus dice to the bounty hunters. You can give bonus dice to CAD. It helps more than just Aura. I'm not just building around Aura.
Yes. Yeah. That definitely makes sense. The other list, Titus, those are 2/7 health supports.
Yeah, but they both have forward planning.
They do.
That was literally the thought process. Was they're scoundrels and they have forward planning. Like I have no excuses. It was what it was.
You can definitely sometimes recover from a condition. Congrats.
Yeah. It never happened in that game, but I also believe that like Lando and R2 never went down. So it wasn't due to wounds or anything. It was just didn't happen. I didn't get a lot of conditions. Everything would either die or be healed.
Yeah, I know you two played, right?
We did.
Yeah.
Round
2.
2?
No.
Yeah.
Was it 2? Yeah, it was 2.
Yeah.
Because you guys played round 3.
Yes.
Yeah. Very
anyway,
how did
well, I was gonna say, what did you guys play? I went through my list with the other two.
All right, Trevor, what did you play?
Surprising no one. So it was Han, Chewie, Commandos, box as is, PLC, Leia, K2SO was a secondary, and then I was running Lando R2 with her. So that was that list. And then I was running just boxes of Spectres. And my mission that I took with me was First Contact.
Because you're a bad person.
Debatable.
Yeah.
No, I know you actually had a good reason for First Contact. So do you want to go over that?
Yeah. So for First Contact, the thought process behind that is, out of everyone in the Spectres boxes, I see that Zeb gets the least amount of life. He has interesting abilities where he can wake himself up, and I've had it happen where I played into Zeb, I get the wound, and then they flip him, put 2 injured tokens on him, and he's just back and contesting the point again. And you just kind of okay, all that work and nothing to show for it. But the reason with First Contact and Hera is Hera can wake him up if she uses her...
We will not stand down?
I will not stand down. The second struggle in First Contact is you can remove a wound token, and then in third struggle, it's an injured token. I might be mixing one of those up, but it depends on which...
mission you flip.
It's wound in struggle 2, injury in struggle 3.
Yeah, so if at some point I have Zeb and he's wounded and I decide not to flip him in that moment, well then if I'm on that struggle, I get the Shatterpoint part, I remove that wound. So I still have Zeb full life being able to interact with the board. But the big thing is when in Struggle 3, when you're removing the injured token, because you can't reserve him if he has injured tokens on him. But to get more life out of this character.
Fair enough. It was cool to see Spectres out. We played third round and was a good realization that I have not seen or played against Hera in a really long time. We had a really cool moment where, you attacked with Hera, got her ability off the tree. I thought I was pretty familiar with Hera's main force ability. For some reason in my head, it absolutely said Rebel support and not just...
It's like I told you at the event, it says Ezra Bridger most of the time.
It says Ezra Bridger most of the time. And wow, when that ability is impactful, is it ever impactful? It was really cool to see. I think I said it last week. I am very Hera curious, and I'm looking for spaces to play her that aren't just with Kanan. And there's some like Hera Jin stuff that I still have in the back of my head that I still want to see if that actually plays out on paper or like on the table like it does on paper. I wish I want to see Hera more. That wake up ability is so powerful. I'm generally a fan of things like just cover bubbles and that kind of stuff. She's definitely one that I want to play with a bit more. So jumping over to mine, to be clear, and I hope the vibe check is here from the list you've heard of. I think everybody got the memo that we were coming out to play a more casual event. I don't think I saw much of anything resembling a meta list other than from a couple new players coming out with playing some boss, which again is totally fine. But I think everybody definitely got the memo that everyone was excited to just play some fun stuff, jumping back in. So I was looking at my minis. I think it started off kind of inspired by our last week's episode and talking about Grievous. And I'm like, I really want to play Separatists. And ended up kind of looking at the mini shelf, and I'm like, Dooku is literally collecting dust. I actually put some feelers out for some list inspirations, so I will throw out a thank you to Chris Sampson for some inspiration on the list. I reached out and said, I want to put Dooku on a table, and I know you've played him lately, so more recently than I have. So what's going on? He's like, Dooku Asajj. Dooku Asajj was the reco. So that ended up Asajj Ventress, No Sarai, Aqua Droids, Count Dooku, Django, and Magna Guard. So just Dooku's box along with Asajj as the primary with the rest of Rift's box.
So how did the Magna Guards do? I'm curious.
So I only ended up playing this list round one. I actually had very much intention a couple other times. One of them I chickened out, and the other was an absolute no because Trevor was playing First Contact, or else I absolutely would have taken this list against Trevor. But I am not playing it on First Contact. So the Magna Guard, we are going off of one game, and I will call this dice variance. But they absolutely they defended 4 attacks in a row, and after 4 attacks had like 7 damage on them.
Wow.
So they still have great expertise conversion for defense, no crit mitigation, but if it's just hits coming through, 1 for 1, 2 for 2 is still solid. 5 dice is solid. I think the first time they were shot at, they were hunkered, but I was rolling 4 to 5 blocks each of those rolls, which is just gross. And I'm sorry, Brad.
Funny thing with Brad is I drove to London the day before to pick him up to come to this event.
Wow, and he was going a long way.
Yeah, and then I tried to drive him back to London after. But it was funny because I walked over at one point just to check in to see how he's doing. Because it's like I did 2 demo games with him prior, and I walked over, and the look you gave me, you're just like, dice. I'm like, never tell me the odds, just keep going. Poor guy.
So they also got 2 activations this game, and all 4 of their attacks full treat.
Oh no.
So if you want
that explains why later on he was telling me about how dice were a little bit lopsided that day.
Yes. If you want to ask me how Magna Guard the Magna Guard were the worst defenders. Everything else I think was pretty average on the dice side, but both defense and offense for the Magna Guards was off the charts, and I don't think was a good judgment because it has me convinced that they're good again. And I know that's a lie. The list, I like it. Plenty of force, access to 2 different displacements. My plan was this is what I was going to play into Revenge list over the event. And I like looking at Trevor's list. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna play the Separatists. And then I like right before putting the cards down was like, wait, what mission do you have? It's like first contact. I'm like, well, okay. There that goes. So I only got to play it once. So my second list, because the other model that I really wanted to get back out on the table was Padme. And this was Padme, pawns, 7 Scorch with Mace, Rex, and the 501st. This is the identical list I played with Kenobi and Mace a while ago. That's actually going back a ways at this point, but it was the last, like right after Delta came out, before I even had played with Boss. I was playing this Obi Mace list. I kind of just put Padme in the place of Obi in the list. And she does some really cool things with this list. I like this list has been chatted about a few times, and just what Padme can do with 7 Scorch. Her ability to bump up the extra dice just on their regular attacks when she's around, but more importantly, the Rule 17 attacks just pumps up their output by a... Hey, Trevor, how much does it pump up their output?
It hurts.
Yeah, Padme has incredible dice. Padme has pretty great trees, but she caps out on 8 damage on one side and 7 on the other. That's off the top of my head. Nobody correct me. But it's somewhere around there. So for just shooting into support, often she can kind of close that wound. Anything else, and she's going to be, despite full treeing almost every time she attacks, which she did for me throughout the entire day, she typically stops short of the damage she needs to close a wound. But a follow-up 7 Scorch with a Rule 17 attack and throwing 6 dice are consistently able to clean up that extra damage. This list was a ton of fun. It was more effective than I think I was expecting it to be. Mace providing enough force to Rule 17 whenever I want, or for Rex to I'm always first kid. Anytime something is attacking around him, most attacks are following up with an additional dash and an attack in a similar way that Separatists do. It felt very good. I think this Padme list with Pawns and 7 Scorch is anchorable, which I think is where I'm going next because I hate myself.
I can hear somewhere Qui-Gon Jinn is celebrating.
Oh yeah, I was impressed with it every single round. Pawns allowing any of the 8 Squad Republic primaries to be able to take 7 Scorch, I think just opens up a ton of options in list building. I think it goes to show the strength of 7 Scorch that it is worth taking Pawns for. But Pawns is a huge factor to this. I took shifting priorities, and being able to have 7 Scorch just forward deployed. His Republic has a ton of access to dashes. If Mace is the opening flip, they both get to move. If it's Padme, Rex, or Pawns, one of them gets to move. So I'm opening up with 2 out of 3 of that center line on shifting, kind of no matter what I flip.
Yeah, in our game, you had Mace first. You got the 3 points on your turn, and you ended up getting one of those points back. And then you drew the Shatterpoint. You shuffled that back in, and I think that happened at another point in that struggle. But throughout that, you had the optimal deck draw because most of our conflict was happening on the one side where Mason was actually kind of over there, not interacting with the board until Rebel 2. We were fighting back and forth. Padme coming up, shooting Kanan, doing the Rule 17, pushing him off to wherever, and then you got the Shatterpoint and was able to do it again. And it was a struggle. It was a struggle just to figure out what to do. I threw everything. I think most of my team, by the end of it, I think I had 2 characters left on the side, and everything else was over fighting over that one point.
Yeah, there was one point where you had 2 bodies on the point, and I had nothing. And I kept staring at it and then flip Pawns. And I was like, well, how am I going to get this point right now? And I was staring at it for a while. I couldn't figure it out. And it ended up that Pawns dashed either Sever Scorch that was on the side back to a ladder to behind the point, went up the ingress. Pawns came forward, shoved Kanan. The shove got Pawns on the point. And then I was able to Rule 17 to get Scorch back up onto the point to 2 bodies against the 1. every single time I'm like, if I didn't have Rule 17 here, I wasn't able to flip this point. How was the game you two played?
It was a slog. Like Struggle 1 especially.
I think Struggle 1 took up most of the time in the round.
Yeah, like it was. I had gone with the Luminara Hondo game or pairing the first match, and I had actually forgotten my Bad Batch cards at home because I'd done a teaching game with them, and I just never put them back in my box. So I went, okay, well, I'm just playing Cad Krennic from here on out, and I saw Trevor had just revenge heavy and went, this is gonna suck, but I'm going for it. Took the aggro list anyway. And I was able to get a fast start. I think Trevor ran Han over to the same side PLC was on, which helped somewhat. So I was able to
you had weak ways that just
I got weak ways onto the point fairly early. Han went after them, failed to push them off, and then I kind of was able to go after the other side and get some wounds before any of the revenge triggers could come after me. I think that that helped me out a lot because it gave me options where I wouldn't normally have them. And Trevor ended up taking the game anyway, but I think that prolonged it quite a bit because I was able to actually do my game plan.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, if you were spread out, I think I was you can kind of ignore PLC a little bit, but it adds up.
Yeah, I was so well positioned for that last struggle too, because I got the first struggle.
Yeah,
and
then I got struggle 2.
You got struggle 2, and I couldn't really affect it too much because Krennic.
You had a lot of wounds by that point.
I had a lot of wounds by that point. I'm also not used to Krennic because no one around here really plays Empire too much. Usually it's scoundrels or rebels. Or Republic. So we're not, and Matt's our big separatist guy. So not used to playing Empire. So I have no idea what Krennic does. So when you ran him up and it was like high aspirations, the guy was going to take this point. I was like, what? I was so confused by that.
Like we were tied
Krennic
up.
Is cool.
I think we had Chewie versus Chewie up on a point. Krennic just kind of walks over to the bottom of the gantry, goes, "This is mine now."
Yeah,
and I get to hold it because it's tied.
Yeah.
It was.
And the last,
I'd like that. It's also just nice that every time I wound something with a primary or secondary, Krennic gets to dash, do a 5 dice. It's like you get a little mini turn. Especially when, even on my support turns, Cad can get the killing shot and still trigger that. I mean, it's large part what the list was built around was getting that trigger for Krennic. I understand Riff is kind of the other popular way to do that, and it does it better, but I like 9 squad points.
Your Han and Chewie were doing well in our game.
Yes.
Boba was kind of like, Boba was underwhelming for you.
Boba's always underwhelming.
I try to remind you as much as possible after you move to primary to do your jump. I was looking at him the other day because my buddy, that's Boba's favorite character. You want to get in the game because of Boba. But him compared to Sabine, who's also a 4/4, the protection that Sabine has at being 4 defense for each is so huge. I'm surprised they didn't give a protection to Boba.
Yeah. So I found the problem with Boba, you did remind me on that first jump. So that was my bad. But after that, he ended up on a side point. Mm-hmm. And the only other point he could get to was one K2 was on. So the jump was pretty much irrelevant because he couldn't leave without me losing that point. And the only one he could go for was locked down. So even if I got above K2, it was like, okay, what'd I do?
Yeah.
It was rough. But yeah, I've never been super happy with Boba. He's the best in his particular position, but I'm never happy to take him, is kind of where I've landed on him. He's a killy unit that has that follow-up ability, has a couple neat tricks. So I'll still take him if the list feels like it calls for him, but I'm never happy to have him in my list.
Which is too bad, because I know a lot of people are Boba fans, and just you said that. A lot of people I know are just, I don't want to take him.
And then every once in a while he pops up in a GT list, and I'm like, what are people doing with Boba that I don't understand?
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel there's got to be something with Vader 1 every time I look at it, but apart from that, I don't know how you make them work.
Yeah, I have played every model in that Bounty Hunter box except for Boba. I've never put Boba on a table. I read the card once and was like, oh yeah, no, that's not something I'm interested in. I play Dengar all the time. Dengar's amazing.
Dengar's great.
10 out of 10.
I do want to touch on one last thing against my game with Titus, though.
Yeah.
because this was pretty funny in the last struggle. So I was set up on the 3 points right before the struggle flipped. He ran Boba. He was running Boba over to a point. I think it was still on struggle 2. But Leia ended up moving into him and punched him after he wounded someone for a revenge trigger. Punched him, shoved him over to Han's point on the far left-hand side, got within range 2 of Han, and then Han punched him and knocked him out.
No, you left him on 1 hit point.
Oh, he's on
took him out
1?
the next turn. Yeah. You had to push him back off of the point because you'd pushed him into tying up the point.
I just thought, I was like, that's a great 1-2 punch thing. Like,
it was great.
Both of them at that moment.
Because it was like, I was like, okay, I tied up Han in melee. I'm fine. I don't have to worry about him attacking me on this revenge trigger. And then suddenly Leia's like, no, you get over there. You take it like a man. Go.
Yep. In that instance, Leia shot first, but what do you do?
Yeah.
Awesome. I think one of the coolest things about this event is that we had 3 new players come out for this one. That was their first Shatterpoint event. Chatting with all of them, I think they all had a pretty good time. I know Mike's local and mostly plays MCP, but I'm sure we'll see him out again. It was really nice to see some new blood out to an event. We had a couple regulars. They just unfortunately weren't able to make this one. So I look forward to seeing the turnout for the next one and just getting this rolling again. I think we all came out of this being like, oh, I really missed this.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I had that conversation with just about everybody, right? Which is super cool. Otherwise, it was a super fun event. I do want to give a quick shout out to Cam's list. So I played Cam in the last round. Cam played a Lando anchor, with the anchor being Lando, Bosk, and Han and Chewie. He played Lando in every game, and I was pretty impressed with this list. Going through it and chatting with Cam, I have never been a super fan of Lando. I think I read that card and I'm like, you don't do very much. Other than some really great force refresh, especially when the deck goes well. Obviously, you are gambling on that, which is thematic and cool. And I think they nailed a lot thematically for Lando, which I love. Just not what I'm looking for in a primary. But Cam has stuck with Lando for basically the entire time and is doing some pretty cool stuff with him. But his Lando Cassian pairing in this list, I was actually really impressed with the list. So the main Lando squad was Lando, Bosk, Han, and Chewie. These are good scoundrels that fit into these spots that can kind of fit with anybody. You can make that Rebels, you can make that Empire. This is where it gets weird because that Lando Cassian pairing, Cassian has Gideon Hask and Bazin Chirrut, and he makes the whole list Empire.
And it's a nightmare.
Yeah. Did you know that Bazin Chirrut and Han and Chewie both getting extra dice on their attacks is gross?
Yeah, well, it's a dice conversion now, but same result unless you don't have any misses.
Sorry, dice convert, yes. Wow, that's gross. For Cassian's identity, Bazin Chirrut are still rebels while they are Empire, and Han and Chewie can pay to be if needed.
Yeah, that's...
Yeah,
he was telling me about
Lando,
it. And...
Oh yeah, if you need to pay at the same time, yeah. Cam and I were playing that list like the week leading up to that event. He was trying a bunch of stuff. I didn't play into his Cassian side of it. I can't even remember what he was playing, but just that Lando squad by itself with the Bosk and the Han and Chewie does so much. I'm sure you're going to touch on it or what he did to you on his first kind of activation with them.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he got a lot of reps into me, and it is terrifying, and I apologize that I helped kind of let them get the case out, but it hurt me a lot too. But, Lando to Cam is like Han to me. Like, if you can make Lando work in any list, you can take Lando.
Yeah. So to the point you were making there, he flipped Han and Chewie on first flip, and I had forward deployed 7 Scorch, and he just walked up and one-shot them. Now what?
In your deployment zone, your support's gone. Okay.
It was a rough start. I think there was some rough activations that made up for it as we went through that first deck, but I was definitely nervous at the start of Struggle 1. Going through this game, which Cam played very well. He got Struggle 2 on me, and Struggle 1 was a legitimate fight back and forth. I was able to take 3 back pretty quickly on the flip back, but this was a well-fought game, and one of 2 games I can think of where I played against Lando that I'm like, oh, you actually do something, which is cool. And I think goes to show what just sticking with a primary, getting the practice in, and being just an expert at what they do and how they can help a list brings so much value. And with that, I think we should transition to the main topic, because we're a little long in the tooth here.
Yeah.
Which is our primary of the week, where we are going to talk about General Solo, which there was no one I'd rather have here to talk about than Trevor. So Trevor, thank you for joining to share some wisdom here. I know, unfortunately, Sean wasn't able to be here. I know he's been playing Han a bit lately locally. I actually thought he was going to bring him this weekend, but he went back to full Empire. Titus, you've played Han a couple times?
Yeah, like I've played him off and on. I usually with Cassian, but I played him in the odd event. I like him. I think he's a lot of fun. He just doesn't always make the cut for me, but that's because I like the weird and wacky stuff.
And I did play Han for a good sprint last year, where I was playing a lot of Luke and Han. I brought that to a couple events back to back, and he is a ton of fun. I actually I have no other way to describe it other than is a ton of fun. I think what he brings is always impactful, but he is, I would pretty easily say, a high skill ceiling primary, which is partially why, when you're looking at results, Han doesn't pop up terribly often. Then on the flip side, you see Han in the finals of the World Championships. So it's hit or miss. There's a few people that have definitely put the time in to make Han work. So we'll kick it off, and we already covered that Trevor definitely has put in the time to make Han work. And I think, for anyone that's put some time into him, you realize that he doesn't quite do what it first looks like he does on his card. And I think that's one of the big learnings for playing Han. So if it feels good to know, Trevor, you have played 40 games in the last year with Han at a 56% win rate. Since Han came out, you've played 71 games at a 49% win rate, which shows some definite growth.
Yeah, it was, coming into this game and learning how to play it and what to expect and react and everything else. Han's revenge triggers, knowing where to be in place for those at best you can. There's a lot of stuff that goes in with him, but the more, it's just repetition. Just get your reps in with characters, or any list, really.
Yeah, so let's dive into what Han does. So General Solo is an 8 squad point primary, comes with 3 force, and kicking it off, we start off with a pretty powerful tactic from a movement perspective. So at the start of this unit's activation, choose another allied Rebel Alliance character. If the chosen character's unit order card is in the order deck or in reserve, each character in this unit and the chosen unit may advance. Otherwise, each character in this unit and the chosen character may dash. So you are moving one character, and if they are in the order deck, they're getting a full advance. Otherwise, they're getting a dash. From my time playing Han, I'm most of the time very intentionally choosing something that's going to give me that advance for both them and Han. Obviously, situationally, if there's like, oh, I have to move this thing, take the dash if you need to take the dash. Han can give himself some other movement for some other places if needed. But a tactic advance is not super common, right?
I find that it's really nice that it's the stuff that's in the order deck, because especially your first time through the order deck, those are the things that need in advance. Once you've moved up, a dash usually does it anyway.
But I think, and again, most of my time playing Han, it was beside Luke, and I can tell you that Luke really appreciates an advance out of deployment. Trevor, I'm sure you would agree with that.
Yep. Yeah. Luke, ever since the changes, Luke is he's in a better place. He's a lot as a selfish of a primary. He does stuff to help the team. He is still, for as fast as he is, also slow at the same time. He's a weird position, because he can jump when he activates. He has jumps in his attack tree. He has the you can profit from this to be destroyed. which is the whole dash on towards a point, 5-die attack. But oftentimes, out of deployment, he's maybe getting to the midline and not really affecting too much.
Yeah, I think it's the order in which those things happen, right? Especially for his first activation. Like, a jump out of deployment is typically not the time you had a jump. If that was just like a 1-force jump on his card that you could use when you wanted to on his turn, would make a huge difference in how fast he feels.
Mm-hmm.
I think. But again, Han's a great partner for any primary. Again, I think looking at pairing him with Charming Leia, that's going to put you advance her out of deployment, and her revenge trigger is very likely active at this point, where she can get into dash range to get that shot off. Rebels don't actually have very much out of activation movement compared to what, say, like a Republic or Empire has access to, and Han's one of the best pieces in with the tag, right? So I think this is a lot of value in what Han
I think
brings.
the characters that do in Rebels that do have out of activation movement, or move other characters, I should say, is that it's only other characters. Only like Freedom Fighter Leia, it's another Rebel Alliance character. There's not too many that it's themselves and another character. Like with Mace in our game, it was both of the supporting units, both characters in the unit.
Yeah, you had to dash a full unit. Yeah.
And then
And
he
himself.
goes off. And then he goes off and does something. So you're affecting a lot more of the board. Han brings that ability to do that.
Yeah, it's Kanan and Han are the ones in Rebels that get both, right? I think that's it.
Bodhi if you spend a force, but as for a tactic, it's that, yeah.
Yeah, and add in the fact that Bodhi's obviously a new addition that helps out there. But there's where again, I look at Republic and just about every secondary has an ability to move somebody or a primary or whatever. Rebels doesn't quite have that, right? So an ability that gives this level of out of activation movement is kind of just we're off to a good start. Just touching on Han's tags very quickly here. He has Rebel Alliance, Scoundrel, and Scout. So add in there for Rebel Alliance and Scoundrel are both just great tags to have in this era, and there's a lot you can do with both of those. Moving on to his next ability is Outnumbered, Not Outgunned. So after a character in this unit makes an attack as part of a combat action, this unit may use this ability. One character in this unit may make a 5-dice attack targeting a character in a different enemy unit. So this is going to allow Han to affect 2 different enemy models in the turn, which is great. Honestly, it's a 1-force. It's a 1-force reactive, and we'll touch on this with his trees, but I think both of his trees enable a 5-dice attack very, very well. The expertise conversion on both is great. Trevor, I guess, and we'll get to this, there is a revenge attack here as well, but covering it here when it's relevant. For his 5-dice attacks, whether it's the revenge or the second attack, I feel like Smug Scoundrel is what I want more often than not. Where are you at?
I'm usually in Gunslinger.
Okay. All right.
I play Han as my main damage dealer. It depends on what I'm playing into, obviously.
Okay. Yeah.
Because one side you're either going to load up with a whole bunch of conditions, but he has access to shoves and more movement on Gunslinger. So I tend to use him on Gunslinger. And on Gunslinger, if you have him in a position where you have a guy on a point, you have your main guy that you're targeting, you have another guy over here, you test the point, you can't get control. It's no brainer to you. I'm going to do my big attack into the guy towards the point that I want to go for. But I'm going to shoot this guy and hopefully take him out if he's already damaged. Weighing an additional point.
Yeah, I do know that that reposition on 3 is very, very handy very often. And again, he will reliably get to that third spot on the tree. And I think when you factor in that reposition along with the shoves, that enables Han in a lot of cases to just affect 2 different objectives very well. Yeah. This is definitely a primary that can flip multiple points in a turn when you combine the movement, the second attack, and his own movement. So I can definitely see the case for Gunslinger for his activation, especially the main 7-die attack. Tons of mobility, great expertise conversion. What I love about Smug Scoundrel is for those attacks where you're looking like 1 to 2 successes, you can do a lot worse than pin, strain, shove damage on 2. And I don't think I've ever gone another path on this tree than
I'm guilty of taking the healing.
Of course you are. Of course, I've met you.
Yeah, it's usually the pin shove straight damage is, if you're on Smug Scoundrel, is the way to go. I'm just pulling up. Because I feel like I've done another direction through his tree on that side before.
There is double shove on 3 successes, which is better shove conversion than on the other side. So I think there's a case for that.
Yeah, so usually if I'm playing into people that have steadfast, I need 1 shove. Going down the middle to give 2 shoves, and disarm's also really big. Can be good.
And this tree can hit 3 shoves if you go the full distance here as well.
Yeah.
Honestly, both of these trees are great. They're super versatile. I think they add a lot and give you some great options for that 5-die attack. Moving into what I think I would say is Han's biggest ability, and most important one on this card is let's keep a little optimism here. For 1 force, when an allied unit is wounded by an enemy effect, after the effect is resolved, this unit may use this ability. If your opponent has more momentum than you, gain a momentum. This is a game-winning ability. This is a struggle-turning ability.
I've won struggles off of this ability because of the timing of things.
Yeah,
it feels like the absolute like worst thing to lose struggle 1 on this ability, because it's like, oh, I lost struggle 1 and my opponent gets to go first in struggle 2. It's just world ending. You just want to kind of go walk into a river.
It is, if any time I think there's a conversation where someone's like, I don't understand Han, I don't get what makes him work. It is not understanding how impactful this ability is. You need to go in with a plan that I want to be able to spend for this. You need to build a list on I need to be able to spend for this, because if you are not leveraging this ability, there are quite frankly better primaries than Han. This to me is what makes him a unique primary in this game, where again, there is a lot of things in Rebels that respond to your opponent wounding something. And a lot of those things can be played around, right? When you look at the different revenge triggers, they can have you can hey, this attack isn't going to do anything, or hey, you're going to be able to move something. I don't think it really impacts something here. I'm going to go ahead and do it. Where this is just backbreaking when you're just trying to get ahead. Yeah, I've got clearance for a wound here. I think I'm safe to do it. And well, I got an advantage, but you're able to just match that same advantage that I was trying to get ahead, and you just never quite get ahead. Trevor, to your point on taking first contact, I think this applies doubly there, because for struggles 2 and 3, you're trying to get ahead by controlling 2 objectives and gaining a momentum. And that's really the way you get ahead on first contact, because if you score 3, you now have to deal with the objectives flipping and having to rework the whole board, and you end up with this slog of a struggle. So I think the general consensus has come down to you take 2 points and you wound something. And you just keep doing that to gain slowly through the struggle without letting it flip. And controlling the board the best you can. This stops you from being able to get ahead on the momentum race. And I know this is a big part of why you have leaned first contact when playing Han for a while, despite my several protests.
So there's a couple reasons why. Because Never Tell Me the Odds also came out when Han came out. And Iden. So yeah, you're building around the keep a little optimism here, which that's exactly what that ability does. You don't feel like I at a major disadvantage when you're able to use it. But with how mobile off of the advanced office tactics, or even the dashes, the reposition, you basically get 2 full advances on first activation or any activation that's still in the order deck, and he affects so much of the board.
Yeah, it really is a huge advantage, right? Moving on to to Han's kind of final ability of, hey, it's me. 2 parts to this ability. Once per turn, when an enemy unit becomes wounded, after the effect is resolved, remove 1 condition from this unit, then 1 character in this unit may dash. So as long as you're doing some wounding, you're able to keep the conditions off of Han, and he's going to be dashing all over the place. This is great. It's a mini Luminara effect. Obviously, Luminara being able to share it across the board is definitely a bit stronger, but having access to this, again, we talked a little bit about Rebels kind of lacking in that out of activation space in a few different ways. So just another piece to move a model while another model is activating just has a ton of value. It's never not good. Extra movement is not something to complain about.
And it's even better when you remember to remove the condition. Because I can't tell you, when I was first playing him, I would forget that part, and I would have the ability, and I'm like, okay, I dash to remove the pin.
Yeah.
Not realizing I can remove the pin and then do the dash.
Or you can, remove a strain, then dash to remove a pin, and now Han has a clean activation coming up.
Yeah. And it's also like your opponent plans, okay, I put a pin on him. If he gets the trigger, I'm fine. It's like, no, I'm going to move. I'm still moving either way. It's not really a gotcha, but it's hard to anticipate because with the scope of everything going on.
So looking at Han's second part of his identity is once per turn when an allied unit is wounded by an enemy character. After the effect is resolved, 1 character in this unit may make a 5-dice attack targeting the enemy character that caused the effect. So full stop up front, this is the worst revenge attack trigger in the game. Very simply because he does not get to move before making the attack, which every other one does. Now, at the time that Han came out, I would have said that is a cost for having 2 abilities in your identity. Cassian said, hold my beer since then. Han does have a very good attack when he gets that 5-die attack. We talked about both of those trees. I think the expertise translates very well on those trees to a solid 5-die attack. And I think, again, early time playing Han and a lot of people trying him out, and a lot of the feeling was his revenge trigger does nothing. It's basically off most of the game. You just have to walk outside of it. But I think it does 2 things well. 1, it does create a bubble of area denial on wounds, which, while likely will never actually get the attack trigger off, can force your opponent to make suboptimal choices with their movement and positioning to avoid around it. And that's something that, again, you can get better at playing with as you learn. I will say combining Han with Cassian makes a very good revenge trigger. So if you're looking to play the 2 together, they combine exceptionally well. And Han's going to be running around everywhere you want him to be, just blasting and having a great time. So there are ways to make it work. But if you're not playing with Cassian, this really is some area denial. This is it's nice when it happens, but honestly, I think everything else in this card is good enough that even if this is never relevant during a game, you're fine. And I think part of it is accepting that, because I think you can view as, Han's a feel bad, I don't ever get to do this part of his card. Just like we talked about with Grievous last week, Grievous also has an entire ability that might as well be blank. At least Han is getting some area denial with his. So I don't think this is a nothing ability. And as from experience of getting shot with Han's Revenge a few times, when it goes off, it will change a turn.
I'd push back on that a little bit, because when you're getting late in the game, things are getting wounded, you're low on force, you can't necessarily afford to always play around it. Or if there's only one objective you can reach and Han happens to be there, sometimes you just have to eat that revenge trigger. Like, it definitely still triggers. It's not always something you can avoid. And when it does, like we've said, Han has a really good attack. So I think most games he's on the table, he'll get at least one of those.
I think that's probably where the stealing that comes in with the ceiling of him and how to position him is like, that's the biggest part for trying to run this ability. It's more of a nice to have than a need to have, because he's doing so much other stuff. But I've had many times where my opponent will move, do an attack, wound someone. Han is able to shoot back, and they're like, "Oh, I'm gonna flip the point." I'm like, "Yeah, I got my shadows on my tree, and you're now at the point that's the mine, and you have no way to interact with afterwards." As well as I'm getting a momentum on top of that.
Yeah, I think again when it goes off, maybe maybe I'm looking at this from the perspective of wounding is an important part of Shatterpoint. I don't do that.
We're also spoiled when it comes to characters like Kanan that just can heal twice and jump, and if it's specters, gets the attack anyone. And the Cassian with the full advances and all that stuff. Like, there is a lot of stuff that is really good, but I wouldn't count Han out. I'm more. I mean, I'm kind of biased, so I know.
Never tell me the odds.
Yeah, never tell me the odds. I'm more inclined to side with Titus on this one, but
yeah, I think the message I want to land is like, if you want to play Han, there is a good primary here. It may not work out great when you first get him on the table, but put in some reps, put in some practice, and I think there is a really good primary here. And honestly, if you're playing Rebels, you probably own him, because this is a must-buy box, because the Rebel commandos that are come in this box happen to be, at the very least, the best 4-cost Rebel support. I think likely the best 4-cost support in the game currently, but they are a must-buy if you are playing Rebels as a tag in your list, and only recently surpasses the best Rebel support by Baze and Churret coming out, who are added in that the best 5-cost support in the game, if not just the best support overall in the whole game, which is likely. So the good news is Rebels are not lacking in the support department. Rebel commandos that come in this box have infiltrate, so they're starting up the board that is infinitely valuable on missions, especially like Never Tell Me the Odds and First Contact. They hit consistently, they're fast. The secondary in Han's box is Chewie, as one would hope and expect. My answer on Chewie is a solid secondary. I don't think I have ever felt bad putting Chewie on the board, but I've also never been like, my opponent has Chewie, oh no. At the same time, 12 health on a secondary is huge.
12.
Yeah,
I think the only other thing that has 12 is Vader, isn't it?
Is Vader even 12 or is Vader 11?
No, like Vader primary is 12.
Is matching the highest health pool in the game. Chewie's got decent attacks. He's got Rebel and Scoundrel, which are solid, decent expertise in melee or ranged. I've never felt super bad about a Chewie activation. He feels good. He has a tactic dash that is free. He can be completely force neutral if you want him to be. I'm not wise to upset a Wookiee is a nice addition for some extra damage when you need it. Handing out cover and expertise to primaries or Rebel characters is a great bonus. I would put this box as a must-buy box if you're playing Rebels across the board. And also, why are you playing Rebels if you didn't want to play Han?
Yeah, he's so iconic. Like,
that's it. The Luke box might be a tougher sell in the must-buy territory, but they're super fun together. With that, Trevor, anything top of your mind on playing Han?
He's never a bad Shatterpoint option. I've played many games where I've drawn Shatterpoint first. Usually people shuffle back in. I take that advantage because with his tactic, like, you're already deploying the commandos up. You have one run to this point on the left flank or right flank, opposite of whatever position you're at. You are effectively getting 4 points depending on the struggle right off the start. And even if you throw an attack in, if you're going second, like, I actually prefer going second when I'm playing Han, because I get to attack first, like, to interact with more of what's going on and get into a better position going into the second turn.
Yeah, I could definitely see that.
Yeah. He's never a bad Shatterpoint option. He usually is my Shatterpoint option. Just, it's going to take some time to get reps in, because it's like, I got him, and I was ready to sell off all my Shatterpoint stuff after my first event, because I would not have a good time. So, patience.
Yeah.
And never tell me the odds. No one tells you the odds. Just go with it.
Never tell me the odds. Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. If you're starting Shatterpoint, despite loving Han as a character, this would not be my recommendation for a first box. I don't think that's going to be a great experience without knowing the game mechanics well and strategy well. I think there are some other Rebel options that are better starting points. But play what you want to play. If this is where you want to start, it's definitely doable. Again, Trevor went through that journey and has stuck to it, but I don't think it would be my recommendation where to start. But it is a good box just out of the box. I don't think there's, like, none of these are bad units, and there's definitely a list to make work here. So let's jump into lists.
That's my other point. Well, it's kind of on the list point. Now, this is a problem for me where I like to play stuff that thematic and whatnot. So I can't not play Han with Chewie, but Chewie is a great secondary to put with other lists. And there's great ways to mix and match. But Han's box, just as a box, knowing that
Works very well.
just great. Like I typically just play that box. And there's not
It's a great way to play him. Like Han, it can be a little bit squishy, and Chewie helps so much with that. Like he heals him, he gives him cover, he gives him expertise. Like it complements Han so well, more than I think any other primary that Chewie can be put with.
I completely agree. Again, Han with Chewie near him is so defensive. Where do we start with Han list building? So if I'm starting out, I want to play Rebels, or I'm just starting out in Shatterpoint, I've bought the Han box. What is our best one box pairing to go beside him?
That's tough.
It is tough. So one thing I will say about the Rebels tag as a whole, it definitely benefits from some mix and match.
For single box, if I had to choose any box, I would probably do the Cassian box.
Yeah, that was kind of my thought too.
I had two in my head, and it wasn't the Cassian box.
I was thinking Cassian or Jin.
Okay, so Cassian, I understand, because like as primaries, they pair very well together. K2 is solid. I just have a hard time recommending the Pathfinders.
So, and this is why I recommend the Cassian box.
Yeah,
is with Han's tactic. So the Pathfinders have an ability that if they have a hunker, when they would do a dash, they do a full advance. So if you have a hunker on them and Han activate, say they've earned in reserve or they're already activated, they end up on their abilities, well, now you can full advance them instead of just dash, right? There's still more maneuverability. You can move with Han. There's their force power for their attack, where if they're attacking primary, I think it is, they can do additional damage for each crit in the die roll. I don't have the card right in front of me to go over the exact.
So they get extra dice. They only get to do one attack, and if they're attacking a primary, they get an extra damage for each crit that they rolled before dice modification.
So there is stuff there, but he has synergy with the Pathfinders as well. And at no point, like moving K2 to get to a point to lock it down is so strong. So that's the box I would go. And then, like we're talking about with the revenge triggers that both Cassian and Han have. You advance Han.
Those combine very well. You've sold me that I think there's no way that's bad.
I think there's another reason to recommend the Cassian box, and that's the with the Pathfinders and the Commandos, you're getting the most kind of like standard Shatterpoint support experience. So if it's your first time into the game, those are the supports that are going to teach you the best habits.
Definitely agree there. Because I think from a learning experience, it could definitely lead to some above expectations on what a support should do. But I do think the Jin box is definitely just a good out of the box pairing. I don't think you're going wrong anywhere there. But my answer was actually going to be Kanan. I think I'd be very comfortable with those two boxes as is. Ezra is a staple secondary in just about any rebel list you are going to build. He is excellent. Combining another revenge trigger in there is really interesting. In a situation, a combined revenge trigger can actually make Han's revenge trigger far more active, far more often. Because if, say, Kanan is able to shoot first and then shove that person into Han's revenge trigger, now it's just funny.
So the reason why I didn't choose Kanan, because I figured that one was coming up, is the attack only comes off after wounding the Spectre tag. And you're limited to the number of Spectres that you have. Now, normally people are going to target Ezra, because he's a problem, because he's great. But that's going to, if they just kind of leave that alone, you're not getting Kanan's attacks.
You're still getting heals and jumps, and I think we've learned with over time that has a lot of value, even if you're not getting the Spectre attack. But I think you're probably sold with you guys. If Han wasn't one of the supports in the Charming Leia box, that would have been an easy recommendation.
Yeah, that would have been it.
That absolutely, I think, just would have been the out of box, but you unfortunately can't play Han and Han in one list. But I think we just covered there's some great options for out of the box pairings. The one thing I will caution against, and we covered this in our Luke episode that we did last year as well, though, don't just buy the Luke box and think you can play these two boxes together and have a fine time.
It's tough. Like, Luke is complicated to play. Boosh is not great. and Lando and R2 are good, but again, you have to have a good grasp of the game to know why they're good.
Yes. Yeah, I'm not saying don't play this pairing because I think Luke and Han can be a ton of fun, but just out of the boxes, Luke is one to pick up after you have built up your Rebel collection a bit with some other secondary options.
You need to get your butt kicked by Darth Vader a bunch of times. You need to get your hand cut off, and then you need to come back as a full Jedi.
100%.
I've seen that. It's classic.
Yeah.
For the sake of time, I think we'll just cover one more list here. Hey, I've got a full collection. I've got all the rebels I need. What is our recommendation for a meta Han list?
Ooh.
That's tough. It depends what way you want to go with it.
So I think we can cover two. Trevor, I'll pass it to you first. What's been your go-to lately as a full list?
Okay, so I'm gonna go with what I played at the GT because I usually play Han Anchor and everything else pairs with Han. So it's Han Chewie Commandos with K2S. So no, what do I do with that? I gotta pull up the list. Give me 1 second because I think it was actually Leia Bodhi base turret. Cassian was K2XO. I think Pathfinder's there.
Yep, that was it for sure.
And then Luke, OB2 from the panel, like the diorama, and then Lando R2.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I distinctly remember that last one.
Yeah, I think for a list built around Han, I think those are all great pairings. In a lot of cases, when you're going full Rebel anchor list like that, you're making a couple sacrifices in that list overall, right? And again, as you mentioned, Trevor, you're looking to stick as thematic as possible too in that list building. But I think every one of those is a great pairing. Again, the Luke one stands out to me as this is a list you'd want to have practice with before putting it on a table for sure. I think if we're talking top meta in what Han can output, I think that the pairing has to be Cassian with where Cassian currently sits from a meta standpoint. And I think you're dropping Chewie here for Callus. I know, blasphemy, but Han has everything Callus is looking for. And by that, I mean the Rebel and Scoundrel tags.
But like, you want to save that force for let's keep a little optimism.
You
don't want to be spending it on rerolls.
So for the Callus play, if you want to play with Han, this is where I use Lando. I use Lando with Callus because Callus is spending the force to reroll. Lando's regenerating the force. It brings a little bit more of the gambling side of you're rolling our dice, you're stacking the deck, you're doing that side to really get that benefit with Han.
Yeah,
and
like
the whole list.
Yeah, that's a big part of what makes me want to play Han and Jin. Is to take advantage of Jin's ability to just have unlimited force by taking momentum that you're gaining faster by spending force in the early game. I think
or alternatively, you can just rub it in your opponent's face by spending a momentum to use let's keep a little optimism to get the momentum back. just to really rub salt in the wound.
Just for fun. But to just finish up that Cassian list, so it would be Han, Callus, Rebel Commandos with Cassian, Ezra, and Base and Shirt. Base and Shirt are helping round out your force concerns that you may run into with anyone else in this list. And honestly, you were just running a collection of some of the best units in the game in this list. And I think Han can really... Sometimes the game plan into Cassian is to just wound through the revenge triggers and just punch through as fast as you can. And I think Han is a really good counter to those strategies where you're spending that force to keep up on the momentum game while getting your revenge triggers to punish your opponent for all those wounds. And I think those things combined can add up to a very difficult list to punch through.
Yeah,
but that's it. That's Han. Trevor, I want to thank you so much for joining us tonight. It is definitely appreciated. Again, there is no one else I'd rather have on this cast than to come on and talk about Han.
I appreciate. Nobody called me scruffy looking. Happy to be here. If you want me to come back anytime, just let me know.
I might call you a nerf herder though.
That's all I'm saying.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming. Obviously, great to chat through. listeners out here, if you've got a Han list that you want to share, have been playing Han lately and want to chat about it, jump into the Discord. The link is always in the show notes. As always, rate, review the podcast. It is greatly appreciated and helps us find some more listeners. With that, have a great night, everyone.
Have a good night.
See you guys. Thanks.